They shall be born with locks of hair that must never be cut. Heed this warning, for disaster shall befall thee shouldst thou defy it. Once upon a time in an African village, there lived a couple named Amandi and Rafatu. They were known far and wide for their kindness, humility, and unwavering love for each other. However, despite their happiness and the love they shared, there was one sorrow that lingered in their hearts, like a shadow cast by the setting sun. Amandi and Rafatu had been married for 15 long years, yet they had not been blessed with a child of their own. Each passing year seemed to deepen their longing for a little one to fill their home with laughter and joy. Every time a newborn arrived in the village, Rafatu would shower the infant with gifts, her heart heavy with the hope that this act of kindness would somehow bring her the child she yearned for. But as the years went by, and still no child graced their home, Rafatu's heart grew heavy with despair. Whenever she returned from a naming ceremony, she would retreat to her room, locking herself away from the world as tears streamed down her cheeks. In the solitude of her grief, she would pray tirelessly to the gods of the land, begging for their mercy and blessing. "Please, gods of our land," she would whisper through her tears, her voice trembling with emotion. "Even if the child is blind or crippled, I do not mind. I only ask for a child of my own to fill the emptiness in my heart." One day, as Rafatu wept alone in her room, Amandi entered, his heart heavy with concern for his beloved wife. He approached her gently, wrapping his arms around her trembling form as he whispered words of comfort. "Do not despair, my dear Rafatu," he murmured softly, his voice filled with love and reassurance. "Though our path may be difficult, know that I am here by your side, now and always. Together, we will face whatever trials may come, and our love will guide us through the darkest of nights." Rafatu looked up at her husband, her eyes shining with tears, yet filled with gratitude for his unwavering support. In that moment, she realized that though they may not have the child they had longed for, they had something far more precious: each other. And so, Amandi and Rafatu continued to live their lives with kindness and love, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. As Rafatu trudged through the forest on her way to the farm, her heart felt heavier than the basket of produce she carried on her head. Tears flowed freely down her cheeks, mingling with the dust of the path as she cried out to the gods of her land. "Oh, great and mighty gods!" she wailed, her voice echoing among the trees. "Why is my life filled with such woe? Am I cursed, or did some unseen force conspire against me? While others rejoice in the laughter of their children, I am left barren and alone. When, oh when, shall my prayers be answered? Even if only one child graces my arms, even if they be not perfect, I beg of thee, grant me this one boon." Her cries seemed to pierce the stillness of the forest, reaching the ears of the ancient spirits who dwelt among the trees. In response, a gentle voice floated forth from the rustling leaves, carrying with it a promise of hope. "Rafatu, dear daughter of the land," it whispered, its tone soft yet filled with a power that stirred her soul. "Fear not, for your prayers have not fallen upon deaf ears. The gods have heard your pleas, and soon your womb shall be blessed with the gift of life. In but a few short weeks you shalt conceive and bring forth twin sons. One shall rise to greatness, while the other shall tread a different path. And mark this well, they shall be born with locks of hair that must never be cut. Heed this warning, for disaster shall befall thee shouldst thou defy it." "Is this truly happening?" she whispered to herself, her voice barely above a breath. "Could it be that my years of anguish are finally coming to an end?" With trembling hands and a heart filled with both fear and hope, Rafatu hastened home to her beloved husband Amandi, eager to share the divine message she had received. But when she recounted her encounter to him, he shook his head in disbelief. "Dear Rafatu, my beautiful beloved wife," he said, his voice tinged with skepticism, "I understand you are yearning for a child, But let not your desperation cloud thy judgment. Surely someone hath played a trick upon you, and you have innocently fallen for their deceit. Let us not place too much faith in such fanciful tales. Though Amandi's words brought doubt to her heart, Rafatu could not shake the feeling that the voice she had heard carried a truth far greater than any skepticism could diminish. And so she clung to the promise of the gods, praying tirelessly that their blessing would soon come to pass. Several weeks passed, and true to the voice's prophecy, Rafatu found herself with child. Months later, she gave birth to 2 beautiful baby boys, whom they named Obi and Chuka. The entire village rejoiced at the arrival of the twins, celebrating their birth with a lavish naming ceremony. 5 years had passed since the twins Obi and Chuka were born, and the village had witnessed their growth with fondness and admiration. On this particular day, the brothers were engrossed in a game in the backyard, their laughter filling the air as they played. Suddenly, their carefree moment was interrupted by the appearance of a venomous snake, its slithering form coiled and ready to strike at Mr. Amandi, who was nearby. In a flash, Obi sprang into action, his instincts guiding him as he swiftly grabbed the serpent and subdued it, saving his father from harm. Mr. Amandi stood in stunned silence, his heart pounding with gratitude and disbelief at his son's heroic act. With trembling hands, he called out for Rafatu, his voice filled with urgency and amazement, wanting her to witness the incredible feat their son had just accomplished. Rafatu rushed to her husband's side, her eyes widening in astonishment as she beheld the scene before her. Seeing Obi standing tall, his chest puffed out with pride, she couldn't help but feel a surge of emotion welling up within her. Filled with a sense of wonder and disbelief, Rafatu turned to her husband, her voice trembling with excitement. "Do you remember the voice that spoke to me all those years ago, promising us a child of great power and greatness?" she exclaimed. "Could it be that Obi is the one destined to fulfill that prophecy, to become the mighty hero we were told of?" That day, Rafatu prepared a sumptuous feast to celebrate Obi's bravery, filling the air with the tantalizing aroma of her cooking. As they gathered around the table, Amandi and Rafatu showered Obi with praise for his courageous act, though they couldn't help but voice their concern. "Obi, my brave son," Rafatu began, her voice tinged with a hint of worry. "You should have called out to your father for help instead of risking yourself." But Obi, ever humble yet steadfast in his convictions, responded with a reassuring smile. "Mother, father," he said earnestly, "the danger was too close, and there was no time to waste. I didn't want to startle father, so I acted quickly to protect him." As they dined on Rafatu's delicious cooking, the praise and attention lavished upon Obi filled the room with warmth and admiration. However, amidst the joyous atmosphere, a shadow of jealousy began to creep into Chuka's heart. Watching his younger brother being praised and pampered by their parents, Chuka couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy. Seeing Obi receive all the attention made him feel left out and envious. One day, as they returned from the farm, Chuka approached his father and expressed his desire to be rid of his dreadlocks, feeling tired of them. Mr. Amandi recalled the words spoken by the mysterious voice to his wife, advising them not to hesitate if any of their children wished to cut their hair. Without hesitation, Mr. Amandi fetched a pair of scissors from the house and proceeded to cut off Chuka's dreadlocks. Chuka beamed with happiness at the newfound freedom from his long hair, feeling relieved and content with his decision. One fateful morning, a hunter set out into the bush with hopes of securing game to sell at the next village market and provide for his family. However, as he ventured deeper into the wilderness, tragedy struck. A massive lion, lurking in the shadows, ambushed the hunter, overpowering him and ultimately claiming his life. As dusk approached and the hunter failed to return home, his worried wife grew increasingly anxious. Unable to bear the uncertainty any longer, she braved the gathering darkness and sought help from the king. Concerned for the welfare of his subjects, the king immediately dispatched a team of youths and seasoned hunters to search for the missing man. After a thorough search, the rescue party stumbled upon a grisly scene. the lifeless body of the hunter lying motionless on the ground, his fate sealed by the savage attack of the lion. Shock and sorrow swept through the group as they somberly carried the fallen hunter back to the village. News of the tragic incident spread like wildfire, sending waves of fear and apprehension throughout the community. With uncertainty looming over their once peaceful village, precautions were swiftly implemented. Villagers were instructed to travel in groups when venturing into the fields or embarking on hunting expeditions, wary of the unseen dangers lurking in the wilderness. Gathered in the village center, the people looked worried and confused. They wondered why their peaceful village was suddenly in turmoil. "Are the gods angry with us?" one person asked nervously. "Have we done something to upset them?" Others nodded, sharing the same concern. "Could there be a dangerous animal nearby?" someone else suggested, eyeing the surrounding forest warily. As they discussed, their fear grew. "We need to find out what's happening," exclaimed one person bravely. "Let's work together to solve this and bring back peace to our village." With a sense of unity and determination, the villagers joined forces to confront the menace that had disrupted their tranquil way of life. Guided by the experienced hunters, they ventured deep into the forest, their hearts heavy with worry, but their spirits strong with resolve. However, their hopes were dashed when, out of the shadows, a fierce lion emerged, its imposing figure striking fear into the hearts of the hunters. In a flurry of claws and teeth, the beast attacked with savage ferocity, overpowering the villagers and leaving devastation in its wake. Despite their valiant efforts, the hunters were no match for the sheer strength and aggression of the lion. Amidst the chaos and tragedy, only one hunter managed to escape the brutal assault, fleeing back to the village with a heavy heart and a harrowing tale to tell. As he relayed the grim news to his fellow villagers, their hearts sank with grief and anguish, realizing the full extent of the danger they faced. Determined not to succumb to fear and despair, the villagers rallied together, their voices raised in a chorus of defiance and desperation. They marched to the king's palace, their eyes filled with determination as they pleaded with him to take action against the relentless threat that loomed over their village. "Enough is enough," they cried out, their voices echoing with sorrow and frustration. "Your Majesty, we cannot continue to endure such loss and suffering at the hands of this monstrous beast. We implore you to intervene and protect us from this grave danger." The king rose to his feet, his voice firm and reassuring as he addressed his distraught villagers. "Fear not, my loyal subjects," he declared, his words echoing with determination. "I vow to find a solution to our troubles and restore peace to our village." But one villager, his patience worn thin by empty promises, spoke up boldly. "Your Majesty," he declared, his tone tinged with frustration, "we're tired of waiting for solutions. We need action, not just words." In a bid to appease the angered villagers, the king made a decisive decree. "Anyone who can defeat the mighty lion and bring it back here will be handsomely rewarded," he proclaimed, his voice ringing out with authority. "I will divide the village in two, and the victor will receive one part as their reward. Furthermore, they will be granted the honor of marrying one of my daughters." As the villagers heard the king's offer, a wave of excitement swept through the crowd. Suddenly, everyone was eager to defeat the mighty lion in hopes of claiming the handsome reward promised by the king. With newfound determination, they set their sights on the daunting task ahead, ready to face the fearsome beast and seize the opportunity for a better future. As Obi and Chuka arrived home, now 20 years old, Obi announced his intention to confront the fearsome lion that plagued their village. Rafatu's eyes widened in shock and concern as she heard her son's bold declaration. "No, my son, you can't go," she exclaimed, her voice filled with worry. "We've only just found happiness with you and your brother. I can't bear the thought of you risking your life in that evil forest." Obi, undeterred by his mother's pleas, responded with determination. "Mother, I'm not doing this for the reward," he reassured her. "I'm doing it for our people, to end their suffering and bring peace back to our village." Just then, Amandi entered the room, his expression mirroring Rafatu's concern. "No, son, we can't allow you to go," he interjected, his voice stern, yet tinged with sadness. "We can't bear the thought of losing you or your brother." Seeing the distress on his parents' faces, Obi relented, realizing the pain his decision was causing them. "I promise, Mother." "Father," he said solemnly, "I won't go against your wishes. I won't risk our family's happiness and safety." With heavy hearts, Rafatu and Amandi embraced their son, grateful for his obedience and relieved that he had chosen to stay by their side. Though the desire to protect their village burned within him, Obi knew that his family's love and well-being must always come first. At midnight, Obi couldn't sleep. He felt restless, like something was calling him. So he woke up his brother Chuka and whispered, "I'm going to the forest to hunt down the lion. Don't tell our parents." Chuka's eyes widened with surprise. "But why, brother? Our parents are old. Please don't go. Do you want them to worry?" With determination, Obi dressed in armor and armed himself with a sword, resembling a warrior on a mission. As he set out into the deep forest, Chuka smiled to himself, harboring secret thoughts. Yes, let him go and never come back alive, he muttered silently. "I just want him gone, so I can have my parents to myself. How I want Obi gone. He is my youngest, yet my parents seek his permission for everything. Even the villagers love him more. The girls are always around him. Let him go, and I will see how he's going to conquer the mighty lion," Chuka said, smiling to himself as he watched Obi disappear into the night. As Obi set out into the forest, the same voice that had spoken to his mother before he was born whispered to him, "My son, do not be afraid, for I am with you. I have been with you even before your mother conceived you. Heed my words, for if thou treadest upon this path, thou shalt encounter great danger." Obi paused, his heart pounding with uncertainty. He knew not whether to trust the voice, but deep within him he felt a stirring of faith, a belief that this voice held wisdom beyond his comprehension. "Take this leaf," the voice continued, "and rub it upon thy face. Then follow the path to thy right. There thou shalt face a fearsome lion, but fear not, for I shall be by thy side. Thou shalt emerge victorious, my son, for I am ever with thee." With trembling hands, Obi reached out and plucked the leaf from the ground. He rubbed it gently against his cheeks, feeling a strange warmth spreading through his veins. As he turned to follow the path indicated by the voice, a surge of determination coursed through him. He knew not what lay ahead, but he trusted in the guiding hand of destiny. The forest seemed to come alive around him as he pressed onward, the rustle of leaves and the chirping of birds forming a symphony of nature's song. At last, Obi reached a clearing bathed in golden sunlight, where a majestic lion stood poised, its mane rippling in the breeze. Its fierce gaze locked with Obi's, and he felt a shiver of fear run down his spine. But then he remembered the words of the voice. "Do not be afraid, for I am with thee." Drawing upon the courage within him, Obi stepped forward to face the lion, his heart pounding. The battle that ensued was fierce and relentless. Obi fought with all his strength, his limbs moving with a grace and agility he never knew he possessed. The lion roared with fury, its claws slashing through the air with deadly precision. Yet, with each blow exchanged, Obi felt the presence of the voice guiding him, lending him strength and resolve. He fought not just for himself, but for his village, for his family, for all those who have lost their lives. And then, in a final decisive moment, Obi delivered a powerful blow that sent the lion reeling. With a mighty roar, the beast collapsed to the ground, defeated at last. As Obi stood victorious amidst the echoes of his triumph, he felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over him. As morning dawned, the news of Obi's journey to defeat the dangerous lion spread like wildfire throughout the village. Fear gripped the hearts of the villagers, including Obi's parents, as they anxiously waited at the path leading to the forest, praying for his safe return. To their astonishment and relief, Obi emerged from the forest, walking majestically, his head held high. The villagers erupted into cheers and applause, overjoyed to see their hero return unharmed. Obi's parents rushed forward, tears of relief streaming down their faces as they embraced their brave son. However, amidst the jubilation, one figure stood apart, Chuka, Obi's twin brother. While he outwardly pretended to share in the happiness of Obi's safe return, a storm raged within him. He had harbored deep-seated resentment towards his brother for years, and seeing Obi emerge victorious only fueled his anger further. As the villagers celebrated Obi's triumph, Chuka's heart boiled with jealousy and bitterness. Not only had Obi survived the perilous journey, but he was also being praised and honored by the villagers. And to make matters worse, Obi was now set to become second in command to the king, a position that Chuka had always coveted. With a heavy heart burdened by envy and hatred, Chuka watched as Obi was cheered to the king's palace by the jubilant villagers. Soon, the entire village had gathered at the palace, eager to catch a glimpse of their hero and celebrate his bravery. As Obi danced, ate and drank with the villagers at the king's palace, celebrating his victory, he was surrounded by joy and laughter. The air was filled with the sound of drums and cheerful voices as everyone rejoiced in his bravery. Obi's heart swelled with pride as he looked around at the smiling faces of his friends and neighbors, grateful for their support. Little did he know, amidst the festivities, his twin brother Chuka lurked in the shadows, his heart heavy with envy and resentment. While outwardly pretending to join in the celebration, Chuka's eyes burned with jealousy as he watched Obi being showered with praise and admiration. The day after the celebration, the king summoned Obi and presented him with a choice: to marry one of his 5 daughters. To everyone's surprise, Obi chose the youngest daughter. This decision stirred up jealousy, especially in the eldest daughter, who had always harbored feelings for Obi. She admired his strength, bravery, and handsome looks, and had secretly hoped to marry him. Now, seeing him choose her younger sister filled her heart with envy and resentment. Chuka, who was also present at the king's palace, suddenly stood up and stormed out, his face contorted with anger. The sudden departure surprised everyone, but Obi quickly stepped in to diffuse the tension. He explained to the puzzled onlookers that Chuka was feeling unwell and had to leave because of a sudden stomachache. The villagers nodded understandingly, accepting Obi's explanation without question. With the situation calmed, the king proceeded with his plans. He fixed a date for Obi's coronation, which would also serve as his wedding day to the princess. Excitement rippled through the crowd as the announcement was made, and the villagers eagerly began making preparations for the grand event. Obi, though grateful for the king's generosity and eager to begin his new life as both a prince and a husband, couldn't shake off a nagging feeling of unease. He couldn't help but wonder what had caused Chuka's sudden outburst and whether his twin brother was truly unwell or if there was something more troubling him. Despite these concerns, Obi remained determined to focus on the joyous occasion ahead. When Obi returned home, he sought out Chuka to confront him about his sudden departure from the king's palace. "Why did you leave like that?" Obi asked, puzzled by his brother's behavior. Chuka's eyes flashed with anger as he replied, "How dare you choose my princess?" Obi was surprised. "Your princess? What do you mean?" he asked, genuinely confused. "Don't you understand?" Chuka snapped. "I have always loved Princess Chika. I've admired her for so long, praying that one day we would marry." Obi was stunned. "But you've never told me about this before," he said, feeling hurt by his brother's secrecy. "Must I tell you everything about me?" Chuka retorted. "Besides, you're my younger brother. You're too small to understand. You have to stay away from Princess Chika, or else Or else what? Obi demanded, his temper rising. But before he could get an answer, Chuka stormed out angrily, slamming the door behind him. Confused and upset, Obi turned to his parents for guidance. He explained everything that had transpired at the king's palace, including Chuka's unexpected confession. Amandi and Rafatu were just as surprised as Obi. Chuka had never mentioned his feelings for Princess Chika before. Concerned, they decided to talk to Chuka and hear his side of the story. After listening to his explanation, Amandi stood up, facing his sons with a stern expression. "My beloved children, there is nothing here," he began. "Chuka has never spoken of marrying the princess, so I see no issue." Chuka interjected, his voice filled with determination. "Don't say that, father. Even if I haven't spoken of my feelings, it doesn't mean Obi should marry her. I won't allow it. Obi can't always be victorious. He can't shine in everything. Now he's going to be second in command, and of all the other princesses, he chooses mine. I won't let that happen. One of us must step aside, or I'll make sure of it." His words hung heavy in the air, filled with a sense of foreboding. Obi and his parents exchanged worried glances, realizing that the situation was far more complicated than they had initially thought. The following day, Obi was surprised to find Chuka in his room. Chuka expressed his forgiveness and gave his blessing for Obi to marry the princess. Overjoyed, Obi thanked his brother warmly for his understanding. Chuka then suggested they go hunting together to celebrate. Despite feeling tired, Obi agreed, not wanting to disappoint his brother, especially after Chuka's apology. They set out for the bush, intending to hunt and prepare a delicious meal. As they journeyed, they encountered the king's eldest daughter, who had come to apologize to Obi for her behavior at the palace. Obi accepted her apology graciously, understanding the pain she felt. Before parting ways, she insisted on joining them for the hunt, much to the surprise of Obi and Chuka. However, Obi hesitated, explaining that women in their village didn't participate in hunting, and it would anger the king if he found out. But the princess was determined to learn, and eventually they relented, agreeing to let her come along. As they ventured deeper into the forest, they were suddenly ambushed by 20 mysterious men. Before Obi could react, they seized him and started dragging him. While the strangers were dragging Obi away, Chuka and the princess watched and started laughing. "That's good for you. I told you I would deal with you. You think you can triumph over me?" Chuka sneered. "I planned this with the princess. You deserve to be gone and forgotten and never returned. Please, Chuka, don't do this to me. Remember, I am your only brother. Please have mercy on me. Don't let them take me away." Obi pleaded desperately, but Chuka didn't listen. He turned his back and left with the princess without looking back. Though Obi was blessed with powers, the strangers had also came prepared for him. He tried his best to fight back, but he couldn't. They had used charms to take away his power. So, defeated, Obi gave in, and they took him away. When Chuka arrived home, his parents were already worried because neither he nor Obi were home when they left for hunting. They asked Chuka where his brother was, and he lied, saying that Obi had also left after their parents had gone out, and he hadn't seen him since. Amandi and Rafatu became even more worried when their son has not returned, and it was already dark. They anxiously waited, hoping to catch a glimpse of Obi's familiar figure emerging from the forest. However, as the night wore on and Obi still didn't appear, their concern grew into panic. Soon, everyone in the village was aware that Obi, their hero, was missing. The youth hunters went to the forest in search of him, fearing he had been attacked by an animal. They searched the forest tirelessly throughout the whole week, but Obi was nowhere to be found. The villagers even expanded their search to the neighboring village, hoping to find some clue about Obi's whereabouts, but their efforts were in vain. As the days passed without any sign of Obi, the village was filled with a sense of sorrow and despair. They prayed for his safe return, but with each passing day, their hopes was lost. As the day of the coronation approached, and there was still no sign of Obi, the king grew increasingly concerned. He declared that if Obi did not return within 2 days, Chuka would replace him as the second in command. Furthermore, Chuka would also have the opportunity to marry any of the princesses. When Chuka heard the king's declaration, he couldn't contain his joy. This was what he had longed for all along, the chance to take his brother's place and fulfill his own ambitions. 2 days passed since the king's declaration, and there was still no sign of Obi. Despite consulting the village priest and conducting thorough searches, Obi remained missing. With heavy hearts, the king and villagers accepted the grim reality. The king proceeded to fulfill his decree, appointing Chuka as the second in command. Chuka's chest swelled with pride as he stepped into his new role, eager to wield the power and influence he had long coveted. As for choosing a wife, Chuka wasted no time in selecting his bride. He chose Princess Amaka, the eldest daughter, the same one who had been with him the day Obi was taken away by the strangers. Meanwhile, Obi found himself in a distant kingdom called Udo, sold to King Obinna by the strangers who had abducted him. In Udo, Obi's fate took a dark turn. He was to serve King Obinna for 10 long years before being sold off to another king, destined to repeat the cycle. Life in Udo was harsh and unforgiving. Obi was subjected to cruel treatment, forced to work tirelessly on the king's farm without adequate food or rest. His only solace was a meager meal provided once a day. To make matters worse, Obi was deprived of sleep, forced to stand guard at the king's palace alone throughout the night. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Obi's spirit began to wither under the weight of his suffering. The relentless abuse and loneliness gnawed at him, leaving him longing for escape. There were moments when he wished he had never survived the ambush, for the torment of his existence seemed unbearable. As Obi worked hard in the king's garden under the hot sun, he started feeling very hungry because he hadn't eaten for a long time. A maid who was watching him noticed how tired and hungry he looked. She felt sorry for him and decided to help. Quietly, she gave Obi some food she had taken from the palace kitchen. "Here," she whispered, giving him the food. "I see you haven't eaten for a while. You must be really hungry." Obi was very thankful for the food and smiled at the maid. Even though she could get in trouble for giving him food, she couldn't stand seeing him hungry. She hoped her kindness would help him feel better. However, King Obinna caught sight of Obi eating and flew into a rage. Furious that his orders had been disobeyed, he ordered Obi to be immediately locked away in the palace prison. The maid, who had shown compassion to Obi, was fired as punishment for her disobedience to the king's commands. After the palace maid was sent out of the palace, never to return, King Obinna ordered the guards to lock Obi up in the palace cell, never to be served food for 3 days. One night, as Obi was sleeping, a voice reached out to him, saying, "Obi, my son, thou shalt not be afraid, for I have been with you even before you were born." Obi opened his eyes, scared, trying to know where the voice was coming from. "Who are you and what do you want from me?" he asked. "I am your protector, and I have come to give you something special that you will be needing soon. Now stretch out your hands, close your eyes." When Obi opened his eyes, he was surprised to see a native chalk on his hands. "What does this mean? What am I going to do with this?" Obi said. "Do not worry, my son. You shall know soon, and when the right time comes, you will use it whenever you feel you are tired or losing strength. You are protected, Obi, my son. You are protected." 2 weeks later, the queen felt sorry for Obi and asked her husband, the king, to let him out of the palace cell. King Obinna reluctantly agreed, and Obi was set free. One day the king sent Obi to the forest to get some herbs. But Obi got lost while trying to find his way back home. He wandered around the forest for 2 hours and ended up in another village. This village hated King Obi's kingdom because of land disputes. They didn't want to see anyone from King Obinna's village, and if they did, they'd sacrifice them to their gods. As Obi sat tired in the forest, he heard some men talking and walking towards him. He quickly and quietly climbed a tree. When they arrived at the spot where Obi had hidden in the tree, they gathered beneath it and started talking about their wicked plans to attack King Obinna's village. They spoke in hushed tones, outlining their strategy to invade under the cover of darkness and wreak havoc on the unsuspecting villagers. Obi listened in shock. After they left, Obi quietly came down from the tree. As he was about to start finding his way back home, then the same voice appeared to him again, saying, "Obi, my dear son, don't be afraid. Close your eyes." And when Obi opened his eyes, he was shocked to be back in King Obinna's village. He was so happy and ran to the king's palace to tell him what he heard. He ran as fast as he could, and when Obi finally got to the palace, he hurried inside, his heart pounding fast. He went straight to the king, looking worried. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice shaking, "we're in big trouble." King Obinna, already angered by Obi's tardiness, scolded him harshly. "You son of nobody! How dare you barge in on me? Who raised you?" "Please, my king, listen to me. We're in serious trouble," Obi pleaded. But King Obinna cut him off, refusing to hear a word. "I know your tricks. You think I'll buy it? No, try again." Instantly he ordered his guards to take Obi away and deprived him of food. As the guards moved to obey, the queen intervened. "Don't take him away. Let's hear him speak." "How dare you disobey my orders?" the king thundered. "Leave my presence." "I am so sorry, your majesty," the queen begged, "but please, let's hear from Obi. I think he has something important to tell us. Please, my lord, let's listen to him." After his wife's plea, King Obinna finally agreed to listen to Obi. Obi then recounted everything he had heard in the bush to the king and queen. "I knew it. These people are so ungrateful. After everything we have done for them, they still want to attack us and take our land." King Obinna exclaimed angrily, "It won't happen over my dead body." "But my king, this is not the right time for this. We have to act fast. The enemies will attack in a few days," the queen urged. Realizing the urgency, King Obinna quickly called upon all the warriors in the land and briefed them on Obi's intelligence. Together, they prepared for battle, with the village priest offering blessings and protections. When the rival village attacked, King Obinna's warriors, led by Obi, caught them off guard and fought bravely until victory was theirs. They sang in triumph, on their way home, praising Obi for his strength and leadership. As they returned to the village, the villagers, who had already gathered in the village square, anxiously awaiting their return, erupted into screams of excitement at the sight of their victorious warriors. They cheered loudly, overjoyed that their defenders were safe and had triumphed over their enemies. Soon the king's palace was filled with villagers, eager to celebrate the victory. Addressing his people, King Obinna said, "My people, we thank our gods for this victory, and I want to extend my gratitude to Obi for his bravery. Despite how bad I have treated him in the past, he selflessly saved us from our enemies." The king's words filled the air with admiration and respect. "From today onward, Obi shall lead our warriors as their head and stand as the second in command of our great kingdom," the king declared, his voice resounding with authority. "And if any of you wish to see me, you must first pass through Obi." Obi was stunned by the king's proclamation and humbly thanked him for the honor and trust bestowed upon him. "I promise to serve you with all my heart, your royal majesty," he exclaimed, gratitude shining in his eyes. The following day, King Obinna approached Obi and asked him how he had come to be abducted and sold to him by the strangers. Obi proceeded to recount the harrowing tale of his abduction, leaving King Obinna shocked. That someone, even a blood brother, could commit such abominable act. After listening to Obi's story, the king then asked if Obi wished to return to his own people. Obi paused for a moment, then replied, "Not now, my king. I will go back to my people at the right time." King Obinna nodded solemnly, understanding Obi's decision. He vowed to support Obi in whatever path he chooses, grateful for the bravery and loyalty he had shown to the kingdom. Back in Obi's village, Chuka had risen to the position of second in command, and the king had entrusted him with half of the village. However, with his newfound power, Chuka began to abuse his authority. He started behaving recklessly, seizing people's land and belongings. Anyone who dared to disobey him faced severe consequences, as he would claim their wives and force them to serve him. When the king heard about Chuka's mischief, he invited him to the palace. "Chuka," the king began, his voice serious but calm, "I've heard troubling things about your actions. It's important to use your power responsibly and treat others with fairness and kindness." Chuka, feeling defensive and frustrated, listened reluctantly. "But your majesty," he protested, "I'm only doing what I think is best for the village." The king sighed, understanding Chuka's perspective, but also recognizing the harm his actions were causing. "Chuka," he replied firmly, "you must understand that your actions have consequences. I expect you to respect my authority and the well-being of our people." Despite the king's words, Chuka felt angry, and he walked away from the king, still believing he was right. When Chuka returned home, he told his wife, Princess Amaka, about how the king scolded him. "My husband, don't listen to my father," Princess Amaka reassured him. "He's always been like this, thinking he's smart. Don't worry, we'll handle him. Maybe he won't even be around to tell the story." Curious, Chuka asked, "What do you mean, my queen?" But Princess Amaka simply replied, "Don't worry, you'll understand when the time comes." Despite the king's warnings, Chuka persisted in his wrongful behavior, mistreating the villagers and seizing their possessions by force. His actions finally pushed the king to his breaking point. He instructed his guards to bring Chuka to the palace. When they got to Chuka's house, he resisted going with the guards, but they dragged him to the palace anyway. Once there, the king had already gathered the villagers and made a decree. "From now on," the king announced, "Chuka is no longer second in command. He loses everything I gave him." Not content with stripping Chuka of his titles and privileges, the king even considered taking Princess Amaka from him. However, to everyone's surprise, Princess Amaka refused to be separated from her husband. "I will go with my husband Chuka," she declared firmly. Feeling ashamed and disgraced, Chuka and Princess Amaka left the palace. The villagers laughed at them as they walked away in shame. After the king took away everything from Chuka and Princess Amaka, the villagers couldn't contain their happiness. They cheered and celebrated, grateful that the man who had been causing them trouble was no longer in charge. To mark the occasion, the king hosted a big feast at his palace. Everyone in the village attended, and there was singing, dancing, and plenty of food to go around. It was a joyful night for all. Meanwhile, Chuka and Princess Amaka had to return to the home of Chuka's parents, Amandi and Rafatu. While Chuka's parents were happy to have them back, things quickly took a turn for the worse. At Chuka's family home, Princess Amaka's behavior was rude and disrespectful. She refused to lend a hand in the kitchen and spoke unkindly to the elderly woman. Even Chuka seemed to have forgotten his manners, neglecting his duties on the family farm. Amandi and Rafatu were deeply hurt by their son and daughter-in-law's disrespectful behavior. Every night, they would retreat to their room, tears streaming down their cheeks as they prayed for guidance and a better future. They longed for their other son, Obi, to return home before they joined their ancestors. Their hearts ached for the love and respect they once knew from their family. One fateful day, after Amandi and Rafatu had left for the farm, Princess Amaka went to the kitchen to get food. When she opened the pot, she wasn't happy with the food inside. Fuming with anger, she stormed out of the kitchen and went straight to Chuka. "I can't take this anymore. What's all this? Your mother can't even prepare a decent meal," Princess Amaka exclaimed furiously. What do you mean by that, Amaka? I'm tired of your bad attitude. You complain about everything. You don't cook, you don't clean, and whenever my mother cooks, you insult her, Chuka retorted angrily. Or is it because I've been keeping quiet all this while? I've had enough of you, Amaka. Your constant nagging is making me regret ever marrying you. Are you serious right now? Princess Amaka asked. Do you expect me to eat this poor man's food in this godforsaken house? Never. I can't continue like this. I even regret marrying you, Chuka. You're a bad influence on me. We don't eat this kind of food in the palace. This isn't your father's house, Amaka. Enough of your nonsense. You're supposed to be focused on giving me children, but no, you're only interested in food. What kind of woman are you? Chuka yelled before slamming the door on Princess Amaka. After a few moments passed, Princess Amaka approached Chuka with a contrite heart. Chuka, I'm truly sorry for my outburst earlier. I don't know what came over me. I was hungry and let my emotions get the best of me. She confessed, her voice filled with genuine remorse. Chuka, softened by her apology, responded with understanding. It's all right, Amaka. I forgive you. I also regret the harsh words I said in the heat of the moment. Relieved by Chuka's forgiveness, Princess Amaka then suggested a new idea, her eyes bright with excitement. Chuka, you know what? Princess Amaka said, her eyes sparkling with a mischievous idea. I've been thinking about something. What if I pretend to say sorry to my dad? I'll tell him we're not together anymore, and that might make him forgive me. Then, when he's feeling kind, I'll suggest to him that he should find another wife. Chuka looked at her with curiosity, intrigued by the proposal. But we both know that your father has been resistant to the idea of remarriage ever since your mother's death. How do you plan to convince him? He inquired. With a confident smile, Princess Amaka replied, Trust me, my dear husband, I have a plan. I'll find the perfect woman for him, someone kind, beautiful, and understanding, and I'll make sure he sees how happy she could make him. She felt excited about the possibilities, imagining how she could orchestrate everything to her advantage. Few days after their evil plans, Princess Amaka decided to go to the palace to apologize to her father. When she reached the palace gate, the palace guards came out and stood in front of her. Stop right there, Princess, one of the guards commanded, crossing his arms sternly. No one can enter without permission from the king. Princess Amaka's heart sank with disappointment. She pleaded with the guards. Please, I must see my father. It's urgent. Just then, the king, hearing the commotion, emerged from the palace. Let her through, he commanded with a gentle smile. With a grateful nod, Princess Amaka hurried to her father's side. Falling to her knees, tears welled in her eyes as she poured out her heart. Father, I've made a terrible mistake, she sobbed. Please forgive me. I left my husband because he's cruel and deceitful. I can't marry him anymore. The king's heart softened as he listened to his daughter's plight. With a tender sigh, he embraced her and said, My dear Amaka, you may stay with me, but on one condition. You must never return to Chuka. I promise, father, I'll never go back, Amaka exclaimed with determination. A week passed, and Princess Amaka summoned her courage to speak to the king once more. Father, may I have a word with you? She asked timidly. The king nodded, and Amaka proceeded to share her plans of finding him a wife. But father, you shouldn't be alone, she insisted. The king shook his head sadly. I made a vow to your mother on her deathbed that I would never marry again, he explained. Until I join her in the afterlife, I must remain faithful to her memory. But father, Amaka began to protest, only to be cut off by the king's stern gaze. No more arguments, Amaka, he said firmly. I have made up my mind. I wish to be left in peace. Disappointed but respectful of her father's wishes, Princess Amaka nodded silently and walked away, her heart heavy with unresolved emotions. Once inside, Princess Amaka began to ponder another plan. This time, she resolved to seek the help of a native doctor. She believed that with the charm the doctor would give her, she could influence her father, the king, in her favor. She purposely sought out a man who harbored a deep grudge against the king. She believed that approaching this particular man would increase the chances of her plan succeeding. When Princess Amaka reached the native doctor's shrine, she poured out her heart, explaining the reasons for her visit. "I know your father is a very wicked man," the native doctor remarked. "Do you know why I dislike him so much? Have you ever asked him why his once best friend is now his enemy?" "No, sir, I don't know. Father has never told us," Princess Amaka replied, and she became even more curious as she listened to the native doctor's words. "Why would he tell you?" the native doctor sneered. "Somebody that stole my girlfriend, your mother, from me. That's why your father is so wicked. I will do anything to make sure he is no more," he declared angrily. With determination, the native doctor handed Princess Amaka a mysterious substance. He instructed her to secretly put it inside the king's food when she returned home. When Princess Amaka got home, she quietly approached the food the palace maid had set on the dining table for the king. With stealthy movements, she opened it and poured everything inside. To her surprise, the king ate the food, and nothing happened to him. This made Princess Amaka hate her father even more. What kind of a man is this? Why did he refuse to leave this world? I am so tired of this old man, she muttered to herself. Later, while everyone was asleep, Princess Amaka quietly sneaked out of the palace and went to Chuka's house. Chuka was overjoyed to see her, thinking that Princess Amaka must have gotten rid of the king. However, Princess Amaka explained everything that had happened to him. Chuka was frustrated and disappointed. "You couldn't carry out a simple task. Look at how dumb and slow you are," Chuka said angrily. "Oh, please, Mr. Man, how dare you talk to me like that? Do you know what I have been through because of you?" "Please give me a break," Amaka retorted, feeling defensive. Okay, I understand. We'll do things my way this time around. How about we bribe the guards and then seize your father and your sister Chika? We can then sell them to the same guys we sold my brother Obi to, Chuka suggested. "Oh, what a brilliant idea." "You are so smart, my love," Princess Amaka said with a smile on her face. Once they managed to bribe the palace guards, Chuka and Princess Amaka swiftly put their plan into action. They grabbed the king and Princess Chika, whisking them away to the bush where they were sold to the very same strangers who had taken Obi. Despite Princess Chika and the king plea for mercy, Chuka and Princess Amaka remained unmoved. With hearts hardened by their thirst for power and revenge, they turned their backs on the king and Princess Chika, leaving them behind in anguish and despair. After Chuka crowned himself king and named Princess Amaka as his queen, they ruled the kingdom together. Their reign was marked by harsh rule and cruelty, causing the villagers to suffer greatly. The hardships they faced under Chuka's previous rule were now even worse. Every day, the villagers endured endless toil and misery, struggling to survive under the oppressive regime. They longed for the days when life was peaceful and their rights were respected. In their desperation, the villagers turned to prayer, hoping for divine intervention to end their suffering. Some elders of the village bravely went to the palace to plead for mercy. They begged Chuka to consider the plight of the people and show compassion. However, their pleas fell on deaf ears as Chuka callously dismissed them, threatening dire consequences if they dared to return. Feeling helpless and afraid, the villagers wondered if their prayers would ever be answered. They yearned for a day when they could live free from fear and oppression, dreaming of a brighter future where justice would prevail. Back in Obi's new village, the king and Princess Chika were brought to King Obina's palace. The strangers who had taken them there asked if King Abina would buy them as slaves. But King Abina refused. Instead, he suggested that they go to Obi's new palace and ask him. Since Obi had just arrived, maybe he would like to have some people to help him out. So, the strangers went to Obi's palace. When they arrived, Obi was shocked to see Princess Chika and her father, the king. He couldn't believe his eyes. With tears streaming down their faces, Obi rushed to them and hugged them tightly, feeling overjoyed to see them safe. Immediately, Obi ordered his guards to arrest the strangers. He did this to stop them from abducting other people and selling them off like they were goods. Obi couldn't bear the thought of anyone else suffering like Princess Chika and her father had. After taking a refreshing bath, Obi invited them inside his palace. They sat down together, and Obi's chef prepared a delicious meal for them. With excitement, they ate and enjoyed the food. After the meal, Obi asked the king how they had been abducted and brought to the palace. Princess Chika then recounted the whole story to Obi, with tears in her eyes. She begged Obi to return home with them, pleading for his help to rescue her 3 sisters, who were now slaves to Chuka. She also implored him to save their people from Chuka's terror. But Obi shook his head sadly. "My beautiful princess, I cannot go back now," he said gently. "I have just taken on the role of second in command here. These people need my attention. I cannot leave them now, my princess. I am sorry." "What about your parents? Don't you have feelings for them anymore? They think about you every day," Princess Chika said, her eyes filled with worry and sadness. Obi sat in silence for a few moments, contemplating Princess Chika's words. Memories of his parents flooded his mind, and he felt a pang of guilt for leaving them behind. "There is a time for everything, my princess," he finally spoke, his voice soft but resolute. Princess Chika nodded, understanding the weight of Obi's responsibilities in his new role. She knew that he couldn't abandon his duties to the people who now relied on him. Yet, her heart ached at the thought of her sisters suffering under Chuka's tyranny, and she longed for Obi's help in rescuing them. Obi reached out and gently took Princess Chika's hand. "I promise you, my princess, I will find a way to help your sisters and our people," he assured her, determination shining in his eyes. "But for now, I must focus on my responsibilities here. Trust me, Chika, I will not forget them, nor will I rest until they are safe." Princess Chika smiled weakly, grateful for Obi's reassurance. She knew that despite the distance separating them, their bond remained strong, and she had faith that Obi would do everything in his power to fulfill his promise. Back in Chuka's village, Amandi and Rafatu felt a deep sense of concern for their son's actions. They decided to go to the palace, hoping to plead with Chuka to stop mistreating the villagers. As they approached the palace gates, their hearts heavy with worry, they hoped that their words would reach their son's heart. However, when they arrived at the palace, Chuka met them with cold indifference. "What do you want?" he snapped, his tone harsh and unforgiving. "If you have nothing important to say, then leave." With trembling voices, they begged Chuka to slow down on how he treated people and to stop taking their properties. "Please, son, have mercy on the villagers," Amandi pleaded, his eyes filled with sorrow. "They are suffering because of your actions. Remember the values we taught you." After Chuka listened to his parents, he stood up, his face twisted with anger. "Is this what you both came here to say?" he exclaimed, his voice full of disbelief. "What insolence! How dare you? Or is it because you are my parents you think you can speak to me like this?" With a commanding tone, Chuka declared that Amandi and Rafatu were no longer allowed to come to the palace. And to make matters worse, he ordered that their farmland be taken away from them. It was like a thunderbolt striking down their hopes and dreams. Amandi and Rafatu couldn't believe what they were hearing. They had never imagined that their own son, now king, would treat them with such cruelty. They knew that their pleas for compassion had fallen on deaf ears. With heavy hearts, they made their way back home, their hopes for change dashed by Chuka's unwillingness to listen. Few weeks after their food at home ran out, Amandi and Rafatu decided to go to their farm so they could get something to eat. As they were gathering produce, Chuka's guards suddenly appeared and grabbed them. With force, they were dragged to the palace. When they arrived at the palace, Chuka commanded the guards to lock them up. "Never give them food or water for 3 days," he ordered angrily. Amandi and Rafatu couldn't believe what was happening. They pleaded for mercy, but Chuka's heart was as cold as stone. Locked away in the palace dungeon, Amandi and Rafatu felt helpless and afraid. They wondered how they would survive without food or water for 3 long days. It was a cruel punishment for simply trying to feed themselves. Back in Obi's village, after a long day of settling disputes among the villagers, Obi decided to take a nap. As he drifted off to sleep, the same mysterious voice from before returned to him. "Obi, my son, why are you so stubborn?" it asked. "I've told you many times to go back to your people, but you refuse. Get up, Obi. Your parents need you now. They've been locked up in the palace cell without food or water. Go now, Obi, go, or it will be too late." Obi hesitated, voicing his concern. "But, wise one," he replied, "I heard that Chuka now has the most powerful warriors, even stronger than King Obina's own." "Obi, my son," the voice boomed louder, "I have given you the most powerful strength ever. Only you can defeat them all. But remember, on one condition, do not cut your hair, Obi. I repeat, do not cut your hair, or disaster will strike." "How do we get there on time, my lord?" Obi asked, feeling anxious about the distance of their village. "Take this chalk," the voice instructed. "Rub it on your palm, along with the princess and her father. You will find yourselves in your village, and when you arrive, seek out the golden staff, take it, and victory shall be yours." When Obi woke up, he followed the voice's instructions. Alongside the king and Princess Chika, they found themselves in their own village. Quietly, they hid until midnight. Then Obi struck, defeating all of Chuka's warriors single-handedly. The 3 princesses and Obi's parents were rescued, while Chuka and Princess Amaka were sent to prison to be locked up forever. The villagers rejoiced to see their king, Obi, and Princess Chika alive and victorious. Amandi and Rafatu thanked the gods for keeping their son safe, grateful to see him again before they joined their ancestors. It was a day of celebration and triumph for the village, as justice prevailed and peace was restored at last. After the villagers celebrated their liberation and freedom from Chuka's reign, the king made a surprising announcement. He declared Obi as the new king. The crowd erupted in surprise and excitement, wondering why the king had chosen Obi while he was still alive. Addressing the curious crowd, the king explained his decision. "I know you people are curious and want to know the reasons I made Obi king while I am still alive," he began. "You see, I am not getting any younger, and I don't want to stress myself anymore. You all know I don't have a male child who would succeed me when I am gone. So, from today onwards," the king continued, "I hereby declare Obi as the king of this great kingdom." The crowd erupted in ecstatic cheers, thrilled by the unexpected turn of events. Obi, humbled by the honor bestowed upon him, stood tall as the new king, ready to lead his people into a brighter future. Back in Udo village, King Obina was furious when he heard that Obi had returned to his own village without informing him. "How dare he leave without my permission?" the king roared. "And why didn't he take my daughter Princess Adaku with him?" As the king fumed, one of the guards spoke up. "My king, I heard that Obi is already married to the daughter of their king, the same lady that was brought to you alongside her father the other day by the strangers." "What nonsense!" King Obinna exclaimed. So, Obi had a wife before he was abducted and brought to this village. How come he never mentioned this to me? That little boy thinks he's smart. Determined to have his way, King Obinna sent word to Obi, reminding him of the promise he had made to marry Princess Adaku. He gave Obi 2 weeks to make a decision, threatening to attack Obi's village if he refused. When Obi received the message, he was filled with anger. How could King Obinna try to force me to marry his daughter? Obi said. She has been rejected by so many suitors because of her body size. Now he wants to force her on me. Never. That won't happen. Not after everything I did for them. Obi's face flushed with frustration as he vowed to stand his ground against King Obinna's unreasonable demands. Amandi overheard his son shouting in anger, prompting him to approach Obi. "My dear king, what troubles you?" he inquired gently. Obi then proceeded to confide in his father, sharing all that had transpired. After listening attentively to his son's account, Amandi let out a heavy sigh. "You see, my dear son Obi, aren't you tired of fighting? Are you not tired of war?" he questioned softly. "Please, my son, let us tread with caution. You know the king has been good to you," Obi retorted with frustration. "But father, I have been good to him too. I saved his village from being attacked by their rivals. He should be grateful for that." "I know, my son," Amandi conceded. "But what will you gain if you go to war with them? I know you will definitely emerge victorious, but there is no need for anger. Just marry his daughter and let peace reign. You can divorce later if you like." Obi's frustration grew as he spoke with his father. "Father, have you seen Princess Adaku? She's so big and intimidating. Many men have said no to her. Now King Obinna wants me to marry her. I won't let that happen, not ever." Obi's voice was filled with determination. "That can't happen. Never, father." With that, Obi stormed off, leaving his father behind, his heart heavy with conflict. When Obi stepped inside, he was startled by Princess Chika's unexpected suggestion. "Why would you even think that, my love?" Obi asked, feeling bewildered. "Are you suggesting I marry the princess, even if I don't love her? Aren't you upset that I want another wife? What's going on?" Princess Chika sighed softly, her eyes reflecting weariness. "I just want peace, my love," she explained gently. "I'm tired of all the conflict. Please, let's not argue." Obi paused, trying to comprehend her perspective. "But marrying someone I don't love, it's not right," he insisted. "And I can't ignore my feelings for you." Princess Chika nodded, understanding his hesitation. "I know, my love," she said softly. "Let's choose peace over everything else." Obi's heart softened as he looked into Princess Chika's eyes, realizing the depth of her love and her desire for harmony. "All right," he said finally, reaching out to hold her hand. "For peace, I'll consider it." After paying Princess Adaku's bride price, Obi brought her home to his palace. However, once there, he noticed a concerning pattern. Princess Adaku would eat and eat until she fell asleep, neglecting her personal hygiene by refusing to bathe for days on end. Despite Obi's gentle reminders to slow down on her food intake due to her worsening weight, Princess Adaku brushed him off. "Please leave me alone, Mr. Man," she'd retort. "Allow me to enjoy my life. Please try and focus on your own business. Since you refused to touch me ever since I came to this god-forsaken palace of yours, let me enjoy my best friend, which is food," she'd insist, while continuing to devour large portions of food. Obi couldn't help but feel dismayed and frustrated. He had hoped for a peaceful union, but instead, he found himself regretting his decision to marry Princess Adaku. When Princess Adaku noticed that Obi wasn't paying her any attention, she calmly packed her things and returned to her father's house. Obi couldn't help but feel a surge of joy. He was over the moon. Finally, this heavyweight champion foodie is out of my life for good, he exclaimed with relief. 5 long years had passed since Obi married Princess Chica, yet she had not conceived a child. Concerned and anxious about the lack of an heir, Obi began contemplating the idea of taking a second wife who might bear him a child. He decided to discuss this with his wife Chica, who reluctantly agreed, but with one condition: he must marry one of her sisters. "Are you serious right now?" Obi asked incredulously, feeling uncomfortable with Chica's suggestion. "No, I can't marry your sister. I won't even consider it. How can I possibly marry 2 sisters? It's unheard of in our kingdom, and I won't be the first person to do it," he declared firmly. When Obi shared his dilemma with Chica's father, he was surprised by his response. Chica's father then revealed that he was actually the one who suggested the idea to Princess Chica in the first place, and the other princess has already agreed to marry King Obi. "We're just waiting for your decision," he said. Obi was dumbfounded. "Are you serious, father? You really want me to marry Chica's sister?" he exclaimed in disbelief. "Yes, my son. It's much better for you to marry her than to marry a stranger we know nothing about," the king explained calmly, hoping to persuade Obi to see the wisdom in his suggestion. A few days later, Obi finally agreed to marry Princess Ada. At first, she seemed friendly and enjoyable to be around, but everything changed when she discovered she was pregnant just a month after their wedding. Suddenly, Princess Ada's attitude completely shifted. Out of nowhere, she started accusing Princess Chica of horrible things, saying she practiced dark magic and even accused Chica of eating her own children. Chica, feeling the weight of her own barrenness, would sometimes lock herself away, crying out loud, questioning the gods for denying her the blessing of children. One day, Rafatu, Chica's mother-in-law, walked in and found her sobbing uncontrollably. "My dear daughter-in-law, wipe those tears away," Rafatu said gently, her voice full of understanding. "Think of our own struggles, how your father-in-law and I endured 15 long years of tears, pain and mockery before the gods blessed us with Obi and Chuka." Chica's tears continued to fall. "But how much longer must I endure, mother? I feel like I'm going mad," she cried out, her voice trembling with despair. "Stay strong, my dear. The gods have their own plans, but they will answer your prayers when the time is right," Rafatu reassured her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder before leaving her to her thoughts. One day, Chica's friend came to visit her and suggested they go see a native doctor who might have herbs to help Chica have a baby. At first, Chica wasn't sure, but then she remembered how her sister had made fun of her for not having any children. With a sad feeling, Chica decided to go with her friend to the native doctor's place. When they got there, the native doctor gave Chica some special herbs that were supposed to help her get pregnant. Chica then thanked the native doctor before leaving with her friend. She felt hopeful that these herbs might finally make her dream of being a mother come true. The native doctor had given Chica specific instructions to rub the herbs gently on her stomach when she arrived home. Following the instructions carefully, Chica applied the herbs with hope in her heart, longing for the possibility of finally becoming a mother. However, her hopes were dashed when Princess Ada unexpectedly barged into the room. Princess Ada's sudden appearance sent shockwaves through the palace. She began shouting and screaming, accusing Chica of bringing harmful charms into the palace to harm her and her unborn child. Her accusations echoed loudly, drawing the attention of everyone in the palace. Obi rushed to the scene, his heart heavy with disbelief. He couldn't fathom that Chica, the woman he loved, could ever be capable of such a thing. However, the accusations against her cast a dark shadow over their relationship. With a heavy heart, Obi made a difficult decision. Despite his love for Chiki, he knew he had to uphold justice and maintain peace in the palace. Addressing Chiki, Obi gently asked her to move to the maids' quarters temporarily, He explained that until the truth was uncovered, it was necessary for her to stay away from the main chambers. Though torn between his love for Chica and the accusations against her, Obi knew he had to take decisive action to protect the integrity of the palace and its inhabitants. A few months later, Ada gave birth to a healthy baby boy, filling Obi with immense joy. They celebrated with a grand ceremony, inviting all the villagers to join in the festivities. Amidst the feasting and dancing, Ada's pride soared. She took every opportunity to taunt Chica, boasting about giving birth to the king's son and rightful heir to the throne. With every jab, Ada's words pierced Chica's heart like sharp arrows. "Your mother couldn't give your father a son, and neither can you." Ada jeered, her voice filled with malice. Chica, struggling to hold back her tears, held on to her faith, whispering to herself, "God won't abandon me. He'll answer my prayers in his time." But Ada's cruel words pushed Chica to her limit. "How dare you insult me like that?" Chica shot back, her voice trembling with anger. "I even regret ever begging Obi to marry you as his second wife." As tensions escalated, Chica decided to remove herself from the toxic situation. However, when she turned to Obi for support, he brushed her off, consumed with attending to his newborn son and heir. Feeling abandoned and betrayed, Chica left, her heart heavy with disappointment, realizing that the man she thought was her loving husband had turned his back on her. 6 months later, Princess Ada found herself expecting another child, much to Obi's delight. One night, overcome with excitement, Obi decided to pay her a visit to check on her and their unborn baby. However, as he approached her chambers, he overheard a heated argument between Ada and one of the palace guards. In disbelief, Obi listened as the guard accused Ada of bearing his child and threatened to reveal their secret to the king. "I can't stand by and watch another man raise my child," the guard exclaimed, his voice filled with frustration. "You must come with me, or I'll expose everything to the king." Ada, desperate to keep the truth hidden, pleaded with the guard, reminding him of the consequences if their affair were to be discovered. "I pay you monthly, don't I?" she implored, her voice tinged with panic. "You know the king would punish us severely if he found out." Just then, Obi swung the door open, catching Ada and the guard off guard. Shocked and dismayed by what he had just witnessed, Obi silently turned away, his heart heavy with anger, disappointment, and disbelief. How could Ada betray him and their marriage by allowing herself to become involved with a palace guard? The revelation left Obi feeling betrayed and shattered, unsure of what to do next. Obi retreated to his room, his heart heavy with betrayal and disbelief. He couldn't fathom that Ada, his wife, had been carrying on an affair right under his nose with a palace guard, no less. Unbelievable! "I can't believe I may not be the real father of the child I thought was mine," he muttered to himself in anguish. "Am I impotent? Can I even father a child?" Obi's mind raced with doubts and regrets. "What have I done? I've ruined my marriage," he lamented, tears streaming down his face. As he wept bitterly, Ada and the palace guard entered the room, begging for forgiveness, claiming that their actions were influenced by evil forces. Obi's anger flared at the sight of them. "How dare you enter my presence?" he exclaimed, his voice laced with fury. "You've committed an abomination, and you shall face the consequences." With a stern command, Obi ordered the guards to escort them out of the palace, banning them from ever returning. Despite the chaos, Obi made a decision to show compassion to Ada's son, refusing to let the child suffer for his parents' mistakes. "Even if I'm not your biological father, I will still care for you," he declared, his voice filled with resolve. Princess Chica, having heard the commotion, entered the room, her heart heavy with sorrow. Seeing Obi's anguish, she approached him with empathy. "It's okay, my love," she reassured him, enveloping him in a comforting embrace. We were all misled by circumstances beyond our control. I forgive you. It was my father and I who forced you into this situation. Obi sank to his knees, overcome with gratitude and remorse. Thank you, my darling wife, he whispered, tears of relief and gratitude streaming down his cheeks. I promise to make things right, to cherish and honor you forever. Chika smiled, her heart swelling with love and forgiveness, as they embraced, united once more in the face of adversity. The next day, as the sun peeked through the clouds, Chika found herself with a question nagging at her mind. She approached Obi cautiously, unsure of how he would respond. Obi, she began softly, why did you choose to keep Ada's child, even though he isn't yours? Obi paused, considering her question carefully before responding. Chika, he said gently, though the child may not be mine by blood, I've grown to love him. He's innocent in all of this, and I couldn't bear to separate him from his only family. Chika nodded, understanding his perspective, but another concern weighed on her mind. But Obi, she continued, what if the father comes back to take his son away from us? Obi's expression softened as he reached for her hand. Don't worry, Chika, he reassured her. He won't try that. I'll make sure the child is safe and loved, just like any father would. Chika smiled gratefully, comforted by Obi's words. Thank you, Obi, she said, feeling reassured by his unwavering commitment. Several months had passed since Ada and the guard left the palace. Then, with a hopeful tone, Chika approached King Obi, her eyes filled with determination. My dear husband, please, I want to ask you something. Please don't say no, she began, her voice gentle yet firm. You know I would do anything for you, my love, Obi said. Please, I beg of you. Let's forgive and forget what your brother Chuka and my sister Princess Amaka did to you. Please release them from prison. They've spent years there now. Please forgive them, my darling husband. Obi's expression darkened as he listened, his anger rising at the mention of his brother's name. No, my wife, that's not possible, he retorted, his voice laced with fury. Do you know how many times my parents have begged me to forgive them, even your father? But I refused. Have you forgotten how Chuka tried to kill me several times? No, sweetheart, it won't happen. Not now, not ever. Princess Chika nodded, understanding the depth of Obi's pain, yet she couldn't shake the desire for reconciliation. I understand everything, my love. I, too, have suffered from his wickedness. I remember everything, she said softly, her hand gently massaging her husband's shoulder. But please, let bygones be bygones. Let's forgive and forget. Obi sighed heavily, the weight of his decision evident in his troubled gaze. It's going to be hard, my dear wife. I will have to think about it, he admitted, his voice tinged with uncertainty. As the days passed, Chika's plea weighed heavily on Obi's mind. He found himself torn between his deep-seated anger and his wife's heartfelt request. Finally, one evening, as they sat together in the quiet of their chambers, Obi turned to Chika with a softened expression. My dear wife, he began, his voice gentler now. I've thought long and hard about your request. While I cannot erase the pain of the past, I understand your desire for peace. Chika's eyes brightened with hope as she listened intently to her husband's words. Perhaps it is time to let go of the bitterness that has consumed us, Obi continued, his tone reflective. If releasing Chuka and Princess Amaka from prison will bring healing to our hearts and unity to our kingdom, then I am willing to consider it. Chika's heart swelled with gratitude as she embraced Obi tightly. Oh, my dear husband, thank you, she exclaimed, tears of joy glistening in her eyes. This is truly a moment of reconciliation and renewal for us. Obi nodded, a sense of peace settling over him. Yes, my love. Let us embark on this journey of forgiveness together, hand in hand. As the news of Obi's decision to release Chuka and Princess Amaka from prison spread throughout the village, The reactions were varied. Some villagers were hopeful for reconciliation, while others held on to deep anger towards the duo for their past actions. In the market and around the village wells, people murmured with discontent. "Why forgive them after what they did?" one villager grumbled, echoing the feelings of many. "They caused us so much trouble." The memories of Chuka's harsh rule and Princess Amaka's arrogant behavior still haunted the villagers. They remembered the heavy taxes, the hard labor, and the unfair rules that made life difficult. "I won't accept it," declared an older woman, her voice full of anger. "They deserve punishment for what they did to us." When Chuka and Princess Amaka were finally released from prison, escorted by guards, the villagers reacted with cold stares and silence. They were not quick to forgive or forget the past wrongs. Despite Obi's decision to forgive, many villagers remained skeptical and hesitant. Chuka and Princess Amaka, upon their release, approached King Obi, begging for forgiveness, which he graciously granted. They also pleaded with the villagers to forgive them, but not everyone was willing. Some villagers were still angry and refused to let go of their resentment. As a kind gesture, King Obi gave Chuka one of his houses and some land to farm on before they left the palace. The villagers had mixed feelings. Some were still angry, while others wanted peace. But King Obi hoped that forgiving Chuka and giving them a fresh start would help heal the kingdom. One fateful day, as Obi was strolling through the village with his palace guards, a girl suddenly emerged from nowhere. She fell to her knees in front of Obi, tears streaming down her face, begging for help. "Please, Your Majesty, you have to help me," she pleaded. "Some men are after me, and they've killed my family." Obi's heart raced with compassion as he looked into the girl's frightened eyes. Without hesitation, he motioned for his guards to protect her and led her to one of his houses in the village, where she would be safe. Along the way, Obi reassured her, "Don't worry, you're safe now. No harm will come to you under my watch." Once they reached the safety of his home, Obi made sure the girl was comfortable before he set out to investigate the situation further. He called for his trusted advisors and sent word to the village elders to gather information about the men who were after her. Later that evening, Obi returned home to find his wife, Princess Chika, waiting anxiously for him. "My dear husband, what happened?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. Obi recounted the events of the day, explaining how he had come across the girl and decided to help her. Princess Chika listened intently, but as Obi finished his tale, she cautioned him, "Be careful, my love. Not everyone who appears in need is worthy of our trust. We must exercise caution when extending our help, lest we fall victim to deceit." Obi nodded solemnly, understanding the wisdom in his wife's words. "You're right, my dear. I'll be more cautious in the future," he promised. The next day, Princess Chika decided to tag along with Obi to see the girl he had helped. When they arrived at the girl's house, Chika felt uneasy. She didn't like the way the girl looked at her. On their way back home, Chika expressed her discomfort to Obi. "I don't trust that girl," she confided. "Something feels off about her." "Don't worry, my beautiful queen," Obi reassured her. "You don't know what she's been through. Maybe she was just surprised to see a queen like you visiting her. She's been through a lot. Let's give her some time." Chika sighed, still unconvinced. "I know you're trying to help, my dear husband, but this girl gives me a bad feeling. We need to be careful." Obi listened to his wife's concerns. "I understand, my dear wife. But remember, you've always taught me about love and kindness. Maybe this girl just needs our help." Chika nodded, understanding Obi's perspective. "You're right, my dear husband, but please, watch your back. We have enemies lurking." "I promise to be cautious, my dear wife," Obi promised, smiling at her warmly. "I know you care about me and don't want anything bad to happen to me, my beautiful queen." A few weeks had gone by since Obi helped the mysterious girl from the village. He felt worried about her and wanted to make sure she was okay. So, one day, he decided to visit her at her house all by himself. He walked through the village streets, determined to see her and find out how she was doing. When he reached her house, the girl greeted him with a big smile. She seemed so grateful. Then, she offered Obi a drink, but Obi wasn't sure about it. I don't think I should, he said. But the girl insisted, saying, "Please, my king, take it. It's my way of saying thank you." Obi hesitated for a moment, but eventually agreed. Little did he know, the girl had put something in the drink to make him fall asleep. As soon as Obi took a sip, he started feeling very tired. Before he knew it, he was fast asleep. While Obi slept, the girl took out a pair of scissors and cut off all his hair. Then, she ran away with it, leaving Obi with a bald head. Hours later, Obi woke up and realized what had happened. When he saw his hair was gone, he couldn't believe it. "Who would do such a thing to me? Why me?" he cried, feeling utterly miserable. Suddenly, he heard a voice in his head. It sounded familiar, but Obi didn't know where it was coming from. "Obi, my son, I've always told you to be careful," the voice said sadly. Obi was startled. "Who's there?" he exclaimed, looking around, but he couldn't see anyone. "Go away, I don't need your help," he shouted angrily. The voice sighed. "It's okay, Obi, I'll leave you alone. Goodbye, my son. I wish you good luck," it said before disappearing. Obi was left feeling confused and upset. He didn't know what to do next. As Obi sat there, feeling lost and betrayed, he couldn't shake off the feeling of anger and sadness. He wondered why someone would do such a terrible thing to him, especially after he had tried to help the girl. Slowly, he got up and made his way back home, his heart heavy with disappointment. When he reached the palace, he was met by concerned looks from the palace guards. "Are you all right, Your Majesty?" one of them asked. Obi shook his head, unable to find the words to explain what had happened. "I'll be fine," he muttered, forcing a weak smile. Once inside the palace, Obi went straight to his room. He looked at himself in the mirror and sighed. Without his hair, he felt exposed and vulnerable, like a part of him was missing. Just then, Princess Chica walked in. When she saw Obi's bald head, her eyes widened in shock. "What happened?" she exclaimed, rushing over to him. Obi explained everything that had happened with the strange village girl and how she had betrayed his trust. "I can't believe she would do something like that," Chica exclaimed, her voice filled with disbelief. "You see, my king, I told you about this strange girl. Something was not right with her, but you didn't listen. Now see how the enemies have gotten you," Chica exclaimed, her voice tinged with frustration. "You know, without this hair, you are powerless, and the enemies can easily capture you. I warned you, Obi. I did." Obi's heart sank as he realized the gravity of the situation. He had ignored Chica's warnings, and now he was paying the price. "I'm sorry, Chica," he said, his voice filled with regret. "I should have listened to you." Chica's expression softened, and she reached out to touch Obi's shoulder. "It's okay, my love," she said gently. "We'll find a way to fix this, together." With Chica's unwavering support, Obi felt a glimmer of hope. As news of Obi losing his hair to a stranger spread like wildfire through the village, whispers and rumors filled the air. "Oh wow, so that hair was what was giving him power," one villager exclaimed in disbelief. "I never knew someone could have such powers with dreadlocks." "Exactly. There's something fishy about King Obi," another villager chimed in. "Haven't you noticed that they don't have children, even though he and Princess Chica have been married for years? I think Obi is also using black magic, and he's used his future children in exchange for his powers." "You're so right, my friend. These fetish men can do anything just for power," another villager agreed, shaking his head. I don't feel bad for him. I only pity our people now. The enemies can attack us at any moment." Just then, a villager who had been silently observing the conversation stepped forward, his expression stern. "Are you guys serious right now? After everything our king has done for you people, you're so ungrateful," he exclaimed, his voice tinged with frustration. "All of us will suffer from this, not just King Obi and his family. Just wait until our enemies finally attack us. You'll see how they'll turn us all into their slaves and take away our lands, including our women and children. Instead of you people looking for a solution on how to protect our land, you're all here talking rubbish," the angrily villager continued, shaking his head in disappointment before walking away. As Princess Chica tried to understand the scary stories about her husband losing his powers, she had two thoughts fighting in her head. One voice whispered quietly, saying she should stick to the old ways of their people. "Go to the native doctor," it said softly. "They know how to fix things and keep you safe." But another voice, a bit softer, told her to trust in God. "Believe in God," it said firmly. "He's the only one who can really help you when you're scared and confused." Thinking about what to do made Chica remember all the times she went to native doctors before. "I've tried that before," she thought, "but it never really worked, even when I really needed it." Feeling sad about it, Chica realized maybe it was time to try something new. "Maybe I should trust God," she thought, feeling a bit stronger. "He's the only one who can truly keep me safe and help me." Deciding to trust in God, Chica knelt down and prayed, feeling sorry for all the times she didn't believe in him. "I'm sorry, God," she whispered, feeling her heart race with emotion. "I went the wrong way, looking for answers in the wrong places. Please help me find my way back to you, and trust in your help." As the word of Obi's misfortune spread across the kingdom, it reached the ears of his twin brother, Chuka. Instantly, a surge of determination filled Chuka's heart, compelling him to hasten to the palace and offer his support. Upon finding Obi distressed, Chuka wasted no time, enveloping him in a comforting embrace. "Fear not, dear brother," he exclaimed, his voice brimming with conviction. "We'll get through this together." Listening intently to Obi's recounting of the troubling events, Chuka's concern deepened. "We can't let our enemies win," he declared, his tone resolute. "We must seek counsel from the village chief priest. He holds the key to our kingdom's protection." Obi's spirits lifted at Chuka's suggestion, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you, Chuka. Your unwavering support means the world to me," he said, his voice filled with emotion. Arriving at the sacred abode of the chief priest, they were met with solemn reverence and ancient wisdom. With humility, they sought the priest's guidance, knowing their fate rested in his hands. After a profound discussion, the chief priest revealed rituals and ceremonies to bestow the power they sought. Renewed in purpose, the brothers vowed to follow his teachings, ready to face any challenge. Leaving the sanctuary, their hearts ablaze with purpose, Obi and Chuka embraced their shared journey, knowing they would emerge victorious against any adversary. As Obi and Chuka returned from the house of the chief priest, a sense of anticipation filled the air. With the sacred medicine clutched tightly in his hands, Obi prepared to administer it, his brow furrowed in concentration. But just as he was about to proceed, the door creaked open, revealing Princess Chica standing in the threshold. Her expression was one of concern, her eyes wide with apprehension. "Oh no, my husband, please don't do that," she exclaimed, her voice filled with worry. "We agreed never to resort to our old ways." Obi's shoulders sagged in resignation as he met his wife's gaze. My wife. I know," he murmured, his tone tinged with regret. "But it was Chuka who suggested seeking help from the village chief priest. I was only trying to protect our family and our people." Chica's features softened as she listened to her husband's explanation. I understand, my husband, she replied, her voice gentle. You were just trying to do what you thought was best. Taking a deep breath, she placed a reassuring hand on Obi's arm. But there is another way, she continued, her eyes shining with conviction. Let us turn to prayer. There is nothing that God cannot do. Obi's gaze softened as he looked upon his wife, gratitude filling his heart. Thank you, my dear wife, he said, his voice filled with love. You are right. We shall place our trust in God's hands. With a sense of peace settling over them, the family gathered together in prayer, their hearts united in faith and hope for a brighter future. As Chuka returned home, he found his wife, Princess Amaka, awaiting him with a mixture of curiosity and frustration evident in her expression. Without hesitation, he shared with her the details of his journey with his brother Obi to seek counsel from the village chief priest. Why, my dear husband? Why do you always feel the need to protect your brother? Amaka questioned, her voice laced with bitterness. He's the one who stripped us of everything we had. Look at where we are now, reduced to mere farmers. Can you even imagine? Chuka sighed, feeling the weight of her words bearing down on him. Amaka, not this again, he responded wearily. Do you plan to hold on to this resentment forever? Haven't we suffered enough? I thought you would have moved past this by now. Why should I move past it? Amaka shot back, her anger boiling over. Did you just mention God? He questioned, his brow furrowed in disbelief. So you know or believe in him? Oh, wow, Amaka, my dear wife. You shouldn't be calling on God's name when we both know you don't believe in him, Chuka exclaimed, surprised by Amaka's sudden invocation. Amaka's face turned serious, and she replied sharply, Are you serious right now? As Chuka tried to explain, Amaka kept on, saying, You always have a problem with Obi and Chika. You pretend to care, but you don't. Chuka felt upset by her words. That's not true. I really do care about them, he insisted, feeling hurt. But Amaka didn't back down. You're just jealous. Admit it, Chuka. You wish you were in Obi's position, she accused, her voice firm. Feeling sad and misunderstood, Chuka watched as Amaka walked away, leaving him with a heavy heart and a lot to think about. Soon words reached Obi that the person responsible for the strange girl cutting off his hair was none other than the palace guard, the very one caught with his second wife, Princess Adaku. Shock and disbelief washed over Obi as he processed this betrayal. The guard I caught with Adaku. How could he do this? Obi exclaimed, his voice filled with a mix of anger and disbelief. After everything I've done for him. But as the story unfolded, Obi learned that the guard's animosity ran deeper than he had imagined. It turned out that the guard's son had been seized by Obi for his misdeeds, and despite the guard's pleas, Obi had refused to release his boy. He's seeking revenge because I seized his son. Obi realized, his anger simmering beneath the surface. And to think he would stoop to such lows. But the betrayal didn't end there. It was revealed that the palace guards had connived with Prince Obina, who harbored his own grudge against Obi. Furious that Obi had left his village without seeking his permission, Prince Obina saw an opportunity for retribution. And, to make matters worse, Obi had chased Princess Adaku out of his palace. Every day, Obi had subjected Adaku to cruel taunts about her weight and eating habits, causing her untold emotional pain. This fueled King Obina's fury even more, and he vowed to bring Obi and his entire village to ruin. Now, his actions had come back to haunt him in the most unexpected way. The gravity of the situation dawned on Obi, and he realized that war was inevitable. He knew he had to prepare, for the enemies were drawing near and could strike at any moment. Obi and Chuka joined forces, gathering their warriors to stand against the threat looming over their land. Alongside their trusted fighters, they prepared for battle, knowing that the safety of their village depended on their strength and courage. As they fortified their defenses, fear gripped the hearts of the villagers. With the news of Obi's lost power spreading like wildfire, uncertainty clouded their minds. The realization that the most powerful man in their land was now vulnerable sent shivers down their spines, leaving them anxious about their safety and the future of their community. Meanwhile, Princess Chica turned to prayer, asking for help from above during this tough time. With each prayer, she felt stronger, knowing that faith would guide them through the tough times ahead. Days passed, and tensions kept rising as the enemy got closer and closer. But Obi didn't back down. He stood tall, ready to protect his kingdom with all his might. Obi and Chuka, along with their brave warriors, stood united against King Obina's advancing army. With determination and courage, they faced their foes on the battlefield, ready to defend their land at all costs. In the midst of the chaos of war, Obi and Chuka fought side by side, their warriors rallying behind them. Together, they pushed back the enemy forces, driving them back with each striker. In a decisive battle, Obi and Chuka emerged victorious, their enemies defeated and their kingdom secured. With their combined strength, they overcame King Obina and his warriors, reclaiming their lands and seizing their properties. As the dust settled and the sounds of battle faded, Obi and Chuka stood triumphant, their victory a testament to their unity and bravery in the face of adversity. After their triumphant return, joy filled the hearts of the villagers as they celebrated their hard-won victory. With cheers and laughter echoing through the streets, they gathered at the king's palace to revel in their success. As the festivities reached their peak, Princess Chica approached her husband, her eyes shining with pride and gratitude. "See, my love, this is why I always say we should trust in God for everything in life," she remarked, her voice filled with conviction. "He is always there to provide and protect us." Obi nodded, his gaze softening as he looked upon his beloved wife. "Yes, my dear wife, you're right," he agreed, reaching out to take her hand. "Thank you for all that you do for our family. I love you more than words can express, my beautiful queen." With smiles of contentment, they hugged tightly, ready to face any challenge ahead with their strong bond and unbreakable faith. When Chuka returned home after the celebration, Princess Amaka's scolding greeted him like a storm. She criticized him for being his younger brother's servant and reminded him of Obi's failure to acknowledge his efforts in the war. "Obi didn't even thank you or share the glory," she exclaimed angrily. "He's getting richer while we're getting poorer. Wake up, Chuka. Wake up and open your eyes." Princess Amaka shouted, her voice echoing in the room. Chuka's anger flared at her accusations. "Are you really serious right now, Amaka?" he retorted, his voice rising in frustration. "We just survived a war, and all you care about is wealth? You must be really foolish," Chuka shouted back, feeling the weight of her words pressing down on him. Realizing her mistake, Amaka attempted to apologize, but Chuka's fury burned too brightly. "I don't want to hear it," he snapped, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Without another word, he stormed out of the house, seeking solace in the tranquility of Obi's palace. As Chuka walked into the palace, he headed straight for the courtyard to clear his mind. There, he found a peaceful spot to sit and think about his life. Across the courtyard, Obi noticed Chuka sitting alone, deep in thought. Sensing his brother's sadness, Obi decided to join him, hoping to offer some comfort. "What's wrong, brother?" Obi asked, noticing the troubled look on Chuka's face. Chuka sighed deeply, feeling some of his frustration ease with Obi's caring presence. "It's Amaka," he admitted, his voice filled with frustration. "She's always comparing us to you and blaming me for everything. Listening intently, Obi nodded sympathetically. "I'm sorry you have to deal with that, Chuka," he said sincerely, reaching out to pat his brother's shoulder in a reassuring gesture. "But know that I appreciate everything you've done for me and our kingdom." Chuka's expression softened at Obi's words, feeling a sense of gratitude wash over him. "Thank you, Obi," he said softly, his voice tinged with emotion. "I really needed to hear that." "Actually, I was just about to send for you," Obi confessed, a smile playing on his lips as he watched Chuka's reaction. "But I'm glad you're here now." Chuka's eyes widened in surprise, his heart racing with anticipation. "For me?" he asked incredulously. Obi nodded, his smile widening. "Yes, for you," he confirmed, gesturing towards the gift he had prepared. "I've decided to give you half of King Abina's village, as a token of my appreciation for your loyalty and bravery." Chuka's excitement knew no bounds as he jumped up and enveloped his brother in a tight hug. "Thank you, Obi. Thank you," he exclaimed, his voice filled with genuine gratitude. But Obi gently pulled away, a knowing look in his eyes. "Before you go, Chuka, why don't you stay and join me for a meal?" he suggested, motioning towards the sumptuous feast that had been prepared by the palace chef. However, Chuka's excitement got the better of him as he declined the offer. "No, thank you, brother. I must hurry home and share this wonderful news with Amaka," he exclaimed eagerly, already heading towards the palace gates. With a fond smile, Obi watched as his brother hurried off, his heart full of joy at the thought of spreading happiness to his loved ones. When Chuka arrived home, he couldn't contain his excitement as he shared the good news with Princess Amaka. At first, she shared in his joy, her face lighting up with a smile. However, her expression soon turned thoughtful as she processed the implications of Obi's gift. "Wait a minute, my dear husband," she interjected, her tone cautious. "You mean Obi just gave you half of King Obina's kingdom? What happens if he decides to give you everything?" Amaka's words struck a chord with Chuka, causing him to pause and reconsider the situation. "You know, you might be right," he admitted reluctantly, his earlier elation fading as doubts began to creep in. "Of course, I'm always right," Amaka said confidently, standing firm even as Chuka seemed unsure. Chuka felt confused as he thought about what Amaka had said. "Maybe you're right this time," he admitted, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Amaka grinned triumphantly at Chuka's acknowledgement. "See, I told you," she exclaimed, feeling validated by her husband's agreement. But Chuka wasn't completely convinced yet. "Maybe I should talk to Obi about it," he suggested tentatively, hoping for some clarity from his brother. Amaka waved off his idea, remaining steadfast in her belief. "And what good would that do?" she countered skeptically. "He won't admit to being greedy, especially not to you." The next morning, Chuka awoke with a determinate resolve. He approached Amaka and confessed that he had pondered deeply on her words overnight. "You were right, my dear wife," he admitted with a sigh. "Obi's greed knows no bounds. We must devise a plan to claim what is rightfully ours." Amaka's eyes gleamed with anticipation as she listened to her husband's declaration. "Yes, Chuka. We cannot let him continue to take advantage of us," she agreed fervently. With a determined spirit, Chuka declared, "I am going to be king, and the villagers would have no choice but to make me their king. And since Obi does not have any biological children..." Amaka's eyes sparkled with excitement as she listened to Chuka's bold proclamation. "Yes, Chuka, we will make it happen," she exclaimed, her voice brimming with confidence. Encouraged by his wife's unwavering support, Chuka outlined his plan with renewed determination. "We will seize control of the throne and rid ourselves of Obi and his entire household," he declared, his voice ringing with conviction. They worked together to make plans, thinking carefully about what to do next. They were really focused and determined to get back what they thought belonged to them. A week later, Chica discovered that she was going to have a baby. She rushed to tell her husband, who was overjoyed by the news. Obi couldn't wait to become a father. He called for his brother Chuka and Princess Amaka and shared the wonderful news with them. They were all thrilled for Chica and Obi. "I can't wait to meet our little baby," Chuka said with smiles on his face. Amaka smiled but seemed a bit sad. "I hope God blesses us with a baby soon too," she said, with a worried look on her face. Chica hugged her and said, "Don't worry, Amaka. God has a plan for all of us. Just trust him." Before leaving the palace, Chica reminded Amaka to give her life to God, just like she and Obi had done. When they got home, Amaka's face darkened with worry as Chuka happily talked about the baby. "I'm not happy about this news," she muttered. Chuka frowned at her reaction. "You should focus on yourself and mind your own business," he scolded. But Amaka couldn't shake off her concerns. "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" she whispered, her voice filled with unease. "This child will ruin our plans. We have to find a way to get rid of Chica and the baby." Chuka's eyes widened in shock. "I will never be a part of that nonsense," he declared firmly. "Then what do we do?" Amaka pressed, her mind already racing with schemes. Chuka took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. "Let's focus on how we are going to rule the kingdom Obi gave us," he suggested, trying to steer the conversation away from Amaka's dark thoughts. A few months later, Princess Chica discovered she was expecting twin boys. She couldn't contain her joy and rushed home to share the news with her husband, who was overjoyed. "After so many years, God has blessed us with not one, but two," he exclaimed happily. He couldn't wait for the day they would be born. Meanwhile, Chuka and Princess Amaka were already in King Abina's village, ruling as Obi had instructed. When Chica gave birth to the healthy babies, the entire village rejoiced. The villagers gathered at the king's palace, celebrating with plenty of food and drinks. Chuka and Amaka were also invited for the joyous occasion, joining in the festivities with smiles on their faces. One day, as Obi was walking through the bush, inspecting one of his farmlands, a snake suddenly bit him. Luckily, the palace guard who was with him acted swiftly, extracting the poison and saving Obi's life. Grateful for the guard's quick action, Obi decided to reward him generously. He gave the guard the other part of King Abina's kingdom as a token of his appreciation. When Chuka heard the news, he wasn't happy at all. In fact, he was furious. He had hoped that one day Obi would give him everything, but now his dreams were shattered. "Look at what your brother's doing, Chuka. Wake up!" Princess Amaka exclaimed, her voice filled with frustration. "You need to snap out of it, Chuka. You're just standing there like a useless man." Chuka felt so angry and frustrated. "I've had enough," he exclaimed, his voice filled with frustration. "Obi keeps giving away everything, ignoring me, even though I stood by him. I will deal with him, and he will wish he never let us out of prison." With every word, he felt more and more determined, wanting to get back at Obi and become more powerful. But he didn't realize that his choice would start a big change in their lives, forever. Chuka decided it was time to confront Obi. He felt frustrated that Obi didn't give him the whole kingdom. As he prepared to leave, Princess Amaka stopped him in his tracks. "No, my husband, don't go to Obi." "What use will it be?" Amaka pleaded, concern evident in her voice. "Don't worry, my dear husband. I have a plan," Amaka declared with determination. "Remember, I promised to deal with him and my useless sister, Chica. Oh, how I dislike them both, especially my kid sister, Chica. She has everything I ever wished for," Amaka said angrily, her frustration bubbling to the surface. Intrigued by Amaka's bold declaration, Chuka asked, "What are your plans, my love?" Amaka's eyes gleamed with wickedness as she shared her evil plans with Chuka. "I've got a plan to make sure Obi gets what he deserves," she exclaimed, her voice filled with malice. "We'll start by causing trouble between Obi and the villagers," Amaka explained, her voice turning dark. "I'll spread lies about Obi, turning everyone against him and causing chaos in the kingdom." Chuka listened closely, impressed by his wife's cleverness. "What about Chika?" he asked, wondering about Amaka's plans for her sister. Amaka grinned evilly. "Oh, don't worry about her. I've got something special in mind," she replied with a sinister tone. "I'll trick Chika into helping us, and then we'll discard her when we're done. Yes, with these plans, we'll make sure Obi and Chika suffer for what they've done," she declared triumphantly. "And then we'll rule the kingdom with all the power." The following day, Amaka got ready and set out for Obi's village. When she arrived, Chika greeted her with joy, happy to see her sister after such a long time. After a warm welcome, Amaka asked Chika about her husband's whereabouts. "Where is your husband, Chika?" she inquired. Chika looked surprised. "He went out, but wait, Amaka. Is it only now you're asking about my husband? Since you arrived, we've done so much together, and now you're just asking about him?" she exclaimed, feeling a bit hurt. Amaka quickly apologized. "I'm sorry, Chika. I forgot. You know, I came from far, and I was also hungry. Please don't blame me," she pleaded, hoping to smooth things over. But Amaka couldn't resist adding her own thoughts about Chika's husband. "Where is your husband going this time? He never stays in his big palace. Instead, he's always chasing after young girls," she remarked with a disapproving look on her face. "How do you mean, Amaka? What do you mean by that?" Chika asked, her voice tinged with anger and confusion. She couldn't fathom why her sister would make such accusations against her husband. "Oh, please, Chika. We all know how Obi lied to you about the stranger girl he helped," Amaka replied, her tone sharp with accusation. "Let me surprise you. Do you know that Obi was having an affair with that stranger? Oh, he didn't tell you." Chika's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. "No, that can't be true. Obi would never betray me like that," she protested, her heart sinking at the thought of her husband's infidelity. But Amaka shook her head, a malicious smirk playing on her lips. "Oh, Chika, you're so naive. You think you know your husband, but he's been deceiving you all along," she insinuated, enjoying the turmoil she was causing. Feeling a surge of anger and hurt, Chika's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "I don't believe you, Amaka. Obi loves me, and he would never do something like that," she declared defiantly, refusing to entertain the thought of her husband's betrayal. "Oh, wow, my dear Chika. Did you just say love? Oh, please, spare me that nonsense." Amaka scoffed, her tone dripping with disdain. "You claim Obi loves you, yet he easily agreed to marry our sister, Princess Ada." Chika felt a pang of hurt at Amaka's words, but she refused to back down. "Yeah, I know Obi got married to Princess Ada, but it was all me and Dad's idea. We practically forced him to marry her," she said, her voice tinged with desperation as she tried to defend her husband. Amaka raised an eyebrow, skeptical of Chika's explanation. "Forced him? Really, Chika? Do you honestly believe that?" she retorted, her voice laced with skepticism. "Or perhaps Obi saw an opportunity to secure his position and willingly went along with it?" Chika's heart sank at Amaka's words, and she struggled to find a response. Deep down, she knew there was some truth to what her sister was saying, but she couldn't bring herself to admit it. "No, that's not true. Obi loves me, and he would never betray me," she insisted, her voice quivering with uncertainty. Amaka narrowed her eyes as she looked at her sister, thinking hard about her next move. "Well, if you're so sure about that, maybe you shouldn't tell Obi about our talk," she said, her voice sounding mean. "We don't want to make things worse in your marriage, do we?" Chica felt unsure, not knowing what to do. I don't know," she said nervously, feeling confused. Amaka didn't seem to care. "It's up to you, Chica, but just remember, I'll be here for you, unlike your unfaithful husband," she said, trying to sound comforting but coming off as sneaky. Feeling sad, Chica watched her sister leave, feeling worried about what might happen next. "Goodbye, Amaka," she said quietly, unsure about what would happen next. As Amaka walked away, she couldn't help but smile evilly, knowing she had planted doubts in Chica's mind. With Chica busy with her own problems, Amaka's plans to cause trouble for Obi were moving forward smoothly. When Amaka got home, she couldn't wait to tell Chuka about her wicked plan. "Chuka, you won't believe what I did," she exclaimed, her eyes gleaming with excitement. Chuka's ears perked up with interest. "What did you do, my dear?" he asked, eager to hear her news. Amaka smirked triumphantly. "I poisoned Chica's mind against Obi," she declared, her voice filled with satisfaction. "I made her doubt him, and soon enough, we'll hear about a big fight or even a divorce between them." Chuka's eyes widened with excitement. "Really? That's fantastic news," he exclaimed, unable to contain his excitement. Amaka laughed wickedly. "Yes, it's true. Chica won't know what hit her," she said, her laughter echoing through the room. "And once she's out of the picture, nothing will stand in our way." As Chica waited anxiously for Obi to return home, her mind raced with doubts and suspicions planted by her sister's poisonous words. When Obi finally walked through the door, she couldn't contain her emotions any longer. "You!" she spat, her voice dripping with anger and betrayal. "You liar! You deceiver! You cheat!" Obi was taken aback by Chica's sudden outburst, confusion clouding his features. "Chica, what's wrong?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. But Chica was beyond reasoning. "Don't play dumb with me," she snapped, her fists clenched at her sides. "I know what you've been doing behind my back." Obi's brow furrowed in confusion. "What are you talking about? I haven't done anything wrong," he insisted, trying to calm her down. But Chica wasn't having it. "Don't lie to me, Obi," she accused, her voice rising with each word. "I heard it from a reliable source. They said you've been unfaithful to me." Obi's heart sank as he realized the depth of Amaka's treachery. "Chica, please, you have to believe me," he pleaded, desperation creeping into his voice. "I love you, and I would never betray you." But Chica wasn't listening. "I trusted you, Obi," she cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. "And you betrayed me. How could you do this to me?" As Chica's accusations echoed through the room, Obi felt his world crumble around him. His heart ached with the pain of her words, knowing that their love had been tainted by deceit. However, as Obi tearfully began to explain his side of the story, recounting the events that led to the rumors, Chica's anger slowly began to slow down. She listened intently, her heart softening with each word. Finally, as Obi finished speaking, Chica's expression softened, her eyes filled with remorse. "Obi, I'm so sorry," she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "I should have trusted you." Obi pulled her into a comforting embrace, relief flooding through him. "It's okay, Chica," he murmured, holding her close. "We'll get through this together." As Amaka fumed with anger over her failed plan to come between Obi and Chica, she decided to do something else about it. With a sneaky look in her eye, she came up with a new idea to make Obi look bad to everyone in the village. She hurried to the elders and told them lies about Obi. She said he was using dark magic to make the youths unlucky, Some of the elders believed her, while others remained skeptical. After Amaka left, the elders convened to discuss the matter further. They deliberated on Obi's character and all the good deeds he had done for the village over the years. Remembering how he had saved them from countless dangers and brought prosperity to their land, they began to doubt Amaka's accusations. Finally, the elders approached Obi with caution, advising him to be wary of those closest to him. "Obi, we have heard troubling rumors about you," they began, their voices filled with concern. "While some may believe these accusations, we know the truth of your character. However, it would be wise for you to tread carefully and consider the loyalty of those around you." Obi was taken aback by the elders' words, his heart heavy with confusion and hurt. But I have done nothing wrong," he protested, his voice tinged with disbelief. The elders nodded solemnly, understanding Obi's plight. "We know, Obi," they reassured him. "But in times of uncertainty, it is always best to be cautious." As Obi returned home, his mind was filled with the elders' accusations. He went straight to his room, seeking peace and quiet to sort through his thoughts. Deep in contemplation, he pondered the unfairness of the situation. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and Princess Chika entered the room. Concern etched on her face as she approached Obi. "Obi, what's wrong?" Chika asked softly, her eyes showing genuine concern as she sat beside him. Obi sighed heavily, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. "The elders. They accused me of practicing dark magic," he admitted, his voice trembling with emotion. "I don't know who told them, but it hurts to be falsely accused." Chika's heart sank at Obi's words, but she knew she had to be strong for him. Without hesitation, she enveloped him in a comforting hug, offering him the solace he needed. "Don't worry, Obi," Chika reassured him, her voice gentle and soothing. "I know you're innocent. You've always been a kind and honorable king, and I believe in you." Obi felt a glimmer of hope at Chika's words, her unwavering support giving him strength. With her by his side, he felt less alone in his struggle. "Thank you, Chika," Obi said gratefully, his heart swelling with appreciation for her loyalty. "Your belief in me means everything." As they embraced, Obi knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he had Chika's unwavering support. Disheartened by the villagers' and elders' lack of belief in her accusations, Amaka decided to take matters into her own hands. Determined to sway Chika's opinion, she sought the help of a native doctor known for his powerful charms. Arriving at the native doctor's hut, Amaka pleaded with him to give her a charm that would make Chika believe whatever she told her. Desperate to achieve her goal, she was willing to go to any lengths to manipulate her sister's trust. The native doctor, intrigued by Amaka's request, agreed to help her. He concocted a potent charm that would bend Chika's will to Amaka's desires, ensuring that she would believe whatever Amaka told her without question. Armed with the charm, Amaka returned home, her heart filled with anticipation. She was confident that with the native doctor's help, she would finally be able to turn Chika against Obi and fulfill her sinister plans. As Chika lay asleep that night, she was plagued by a terrifying nightmare. Startled awake, she rose from her bed and began to pray fervently, seeking protection against unseen foes that threatened her peace of mind. After her prayers, she returned to bed, her mind troubled by the unsettling vision. The following day, Amaka paid Chika a visit, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Tearfully, she spun a tale of betrayal, claiming that Obi had once attempted to take advantage of her. Shocked and enraged by the accusation, Chika's trust in her sister shattered. "How dare you make such vile accusations against Obi?" Chika exclaimed, her voice trembling with fury. "I will not tolerate such nonsense anymore. Leave at once and never you return." Feeling disgraced and disappointed, Amaka slinked away, her mind racing with confusion and frustration. Why hadn't the charm worked as intended? Determined to uncover the truth, she sought out the native doctor once more. Arriving at the native doctor's hut, Amaka asked him why the charm didn't work on Chika. Why did the charm fail to sway Chika's beliefs? She asked, sounding desperate. The native doctor sighed heavily, his expression grave. Some spirits are too strong to be influenced by charms, he explained, his tone somber. Chika's spirit is one of them. Amaka's heart sank with defeat. Why didn't you tell me this before you gave me the charms? She asked, frustration evident in her voice. Realization dawned on Amaka. If charms couldn't manipulate Chika, then her plans to undermine Obi were doomed to fail. But she refused to give up so easily. Then give me charms to make Obi lose his mind, she demanded, her voice laced with determination. I will not rest until he suffers for what he's done. The native doctor sadly shook his head. I can't do that, he said firmly. Obi's spirit is too strong for such bad magic. Feeling defeated but still determined, Amaka walked away from the native doctor's hut. She couldn't shake off the thoughts of revenge swirling in her mind. She was determined to make Obi suffer, even if she had to use darker magic to do it. Upon returning home, Amaka wasted no time in sharing her diabolical plan with her husband, Chuka. I've got it, she exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. We'll put charms on Obi's warriors and have them attack at night. Without his powers, he won't stand a chance. Chuka's face lit up with delight at the cunning scheme. That's brilliant, he agreed eagerly. If Obi's own warriors turn against him, he'll be defenseless. Amaka nodded, her heart racing with anticipation. Exactly. And since Obi is no longer with the dreadlocks that used to give him more power, he'll be even easier to defeat, she added with a wicked grin. With their plan in motion, Amaka and Chuka would stop at nothing to ensure Obi's downfall and seize control of the kingdom for themselves. In another restless night, Chika found herself trapped in a terrifying dream. She saw shadowy figures chasing Obi with cutlasses. Startled awake, she shook Obi gently, her heart racing with fear, and recounted the nightmare. Obi listened intently, his brow furrowing with concern as Chika described the haunting vision. Without hesitation, they both began to pray fervently, seeking protection from whatever evil lurked in the shadows. Feeling a sense of urgency, Chika suggested they embark on a 7-day fasting and prayer journey to strengthen their spirits and ward off any impending danger. Obi readily agreed, recognizing the importance of their unity in facing the trials ahead. A month went by, and Chuka and Amaka were relentless in their pursuit of power. They knew they had to find a way to weaken Obi's warriors if they were to stand any chance of taking over his village. So, they hatched a devious plan to bribe the palace chef. With promises of wealth beyond her wildest dreams and the allure of ruling over King Abina's kingdom, the palace chef couldn't resist their offer. She agreed to help them, eager to secure her own future at any cost. Armed with the special charms provided by Chuka and Amaka, the palace chef infused them into the meals prepared for Obi's warriors. These charms were potent, designed to take the strength and courage from anyone who consumed them. As time passed, the warriors kept eating the tricked food, not knowing what was happening. Each meal made them a little less strong and brave, making it easier for Chuka and Amaka's plan to work. Meanwhile, Chuka and Amaka watched excitedly as their plan unfolded. They knew that soon, Obi's warriors wouldn't be able to defend the village anymore. Victory was getting closer, and they were determined to win, no matter what. Under the cover of darkness, Chuka and his warriors launched their attack on Obi's village. Despite their weakened state, Obi's warriors fought bravely, but the charms had already weakened their strength, leaving them vulnerable. With only Obi standing strong against Chuka's warriors, the battle intensified. Obi fought with all his might, drawing strength from his faith in God. As the clash of swords echoed through the night, Obi knew he couldn't give up. In the midst of the chaos, Obi caught sight of a mysterious figure joining the fray, striking down Chuka's warriors with skill and precision. Curious, Obi moved closer, only to be met with a surprise attack from behind by none other than Chuka, wielding a deadly sword. But before Chuka could land the fatal blow, the stranger intervened, delivering a decisive blow to Chuka, who fell to the ground, defeated. With the stranger's help, Obi and his newfound ally emerged victorious, driving off Chuka and his remaining warriors. With the battle won, the stranger removed his helmet, revealing himself to be none other than the palace guard who had once saved Obi's life from a deadly snakebite. Overwhelmed with shock and gratitude, Obi thanked the guard profusely, promising to reward him for his bravery. As dawn broke and peace settled over the village once more, Obi reflected on the events of the night, grateful for the timely intervention of his mysterious savior. With the threat of Chuka's tyranny vanquished, Obi could finally look forward to a brighter future for himself and his people. Overwhelmed by sadness and anger at the loss of her husband, Amaka's heart was filled with bitterness as tears streamed down her cheeks. She was determined to make those responsible pay for their actions, so she went in search of another native doctor, hoping for a way to get revenge. Deep in the forest, she found a secluded hut where she poured out her troubles to the native doctor, pleading for help. Touched by her sorrow, the native doctor gave her a pouch filled with strange herbs and spells, warning her to keep it dry. But just as Amaka left the hut, dark clouds gathered in the sky, and before she could find shelter, the rain poured down in sheets, soaking her to the bone. Clutching the pouch tightly, she prayed desperately for protection. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning struck nearby, sending Amaka crashing to the ground in pain. Villagers who heard her cries rushed to her side, their faces filled with worry. In her final moments, Amaka confessed to her wrongdoing, admitting the depth of her treachery. Tears flowed freely as she begged for forgiveness, her voice trembling with remorse. As the villagers watched, Amaka's spirit departed, leaving behind the burden of her sins. And as the rain continued to fall, washing away the traces of her presence, the villagers whispered a prayer for her troubled soul, hoping that she would find peace in the afterlife. Upon hearing the news of Amaka's tragic demise, a mix of emotions swept over Obi and Chika. Though saddened by the loss of a family member, they couldn't help but feel a sense of relief that the turmoil Amaka caused had finally come to an end. Chika, burdened by guilt for ever doubting her husband, found solace in his forgiving embrace. Tearfully, she confessed to Obi how Amaka had tried to poison her mind against him, expressing deep regret for ever entertaining such thoughts. Moved by his wife's sincerity, Obi embraced her tenderly, offering his forgiveness without hesitation. "Chika, my love, I understand," he reassured her, his voice filled with warmth and understanding. "We have faced many trials, but our love has remained steadfast through it all." As they reflected on the events that had transpired, Obi and Chika realized the importance of trust and loyalty in their relationship. They vowed to always stand by each other, no matter what challenges they may face. The moral of this captivating story is the dangers of jealousy and betrayal, especially among family members. Jealousy can lead to distrust, deception, and ultimately, tragic consequences. It's essential to cultivate trust, understanding, and forgiveness in our relationships to avoid falling into the trap of envy and resentment. Dear viewers, we hope you've enjoyed this thrilling tale of love, betrayal, and redemption. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories like this one. Don't forget to turn on post notifications so you never miss an update. Until next time, stay tuned for more adventures on our channel.